It's 6 o'clock. Okay, good. It really is, even though. All right, welcome back. Welcome to the study session. So first we have a presentation. We're gonna welcome the Girl Scout Troop 41978. These girls here are working to earn a badge in government. So I just wanted to show you, I actually brought mine. Oh, girls, look at that. I'm not even gonna tell you what year, but it was a very, I don't even, it was a very long time ago.
Where's the government badge?
I left it at home. Anyway, so I think you want to do a little presentation or have the girls stand up and.
What is it? They each have something to say
Perfect.
to present to you guys.
So perfect. So, yeah. Oh, good.
My name is Ella. This is my third year of Girl Scouts. We are a new troop, 41978. Our troop is brownies, which is second and third graders, and juniors that are fourth and fifth graders. We want to thank you for letting us come tonight. We are here to earn our government badge. This badge is part of the legacy journey.
My name is Grace. I am a brownie. This is my first year as a Girl Scout. I will tell you our Girl Scout promise. On my honor, I will try to serve God and my country and to help people at all times and to live by the Girl Scout law.
My name is Kelsey. This is my first year as a Girl Scout. To earn the government badge, you have to do 5 different things. 1, attend a city council meeting. Learn about what makes an active citizen. We have to interview a longtime citizen of the area. Create a poster about an issue we want to change. Interview an elected official.
My name is Madison. This is my first year as a Girl Scout. Patches are fun and educational. Things we do, they go on the back of our vests. Explain some patches.
Very nice.
So we did a 4th of July parade. Ella is a horseback rider. We did picking berries. We do Girl Scout tree promise. We went to Wild Waves and did water safety. And Girl Scout night at the Rainier baseball.
My name is Avon. This is my first year of Girl Scouts. We also learn badges. There are 5 different things we have to do to earn a badge. We have earned our first aid and animal habitats badges.
Hi, my name is Constance. This is my first year as a Girl Scout. We have a few questions for you. First one, what does the mayor do?
I guess I'll take that one. The mayor is in charge of running day-to-day operations and making sure the city runs as smoothly and as efficiently as possible.
What can we do as a troop to help our community?
Anyone else?
I know from my experience in scouting, there's the capability of volunteering, helping with various things, projects that you might put together. Such as helping out with the park, if we're doing tree planting day, which we do annually, you can have a tree or 2 that you can plant, various things like that.
Why do you guys meet as a council?
Ollie?
Did you say why? Why do we meet?
Why do you meet as a council?
We meet as a council to come together and to create policy. Of the city.
Have any of you ever been a Girl Scout or Boy Scout?
Cub Scout.
What are the different positions on the council?
Council members are part of different committees. They're all equal though in their votes here. Everyone has a single vote. And collectively, if 4 people decide on the same thing, that's how we pass our legislation in our business.
Okay, last question. Why did you want to become mayor?
I kind of want to give back. This is my hometown. It's pretty awesome to be able to help shape how it grows.
Can I ask a question, just a quick question? It's very important. Now, what is your favorite Girl Scout cookie? Oh,
Highly debatable.
yeah.
Yes.
Oh, you haven't sold cookies yet.
Yeah,
Oh,
we're brand new.
oh, okay. Oh, but you have.
So this is her 3rd year. She's
Yeah.
been selling it.
It's the vanilla, not Oreos, but the ones with the vanilla cookies and the vanilla. Yeah.
I hope you buy cookies from us.
We still went for that. Of course we will.
What are your?
Are the Adventure Falls and the Cinnamons?
Oh, and mints. Oh, those are always been my favorites.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I believe the mayor.
Yeah. We got some, the Girl Scouts want to come up here. We got some Google. Do you get a picture here with the council and myself? You want to stand up, council, or?
We can get close. Should I put my sash on? Yes.
When you get in closer.
Closer.
No, then you get back farther.
Yeah.
Ashley, can you move to the left?
Like this.
Really close now.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And one more. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you, Kathy, our city clerk, for putting these together.
Thank you, Kathy.
And then, did you have a couple that weren't here? too?
I think so.
You had a couple that weren't here?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much.
Next on the agenda is the dog park discussion.
Does everybody have the?
I asked the Dan, please.
Yeah. So I put together this bid tab just to show you what we got in for bids, dog park. Good news, bad news, we're not gonna be able to do the restrooms at this point. We'll get it done in the future as budget allows, but our lowest responsive bidder was McClung Construction for $693,529.20. So we plan on bringing this to council next week.
Brad, do you want to talk about how our low bid was, what, a little over $1 million last time and what we did to rebid it?
Sure.
To a lower cost?
Well, we put the restroom in because we knew that was gonna be a big item. We put that in as an add alternate into the bid packet. So we asked for a bid for everything with the restroom and then pull out the restroom and give us that bid. So and then we did a few minor things. We changed some lighting. Changed our base course for the parking lot. Just to drop some numbers. So this was the outcome.
And what's our grant amount again?
A total of $575. So one for $525 and one for $50.
So 500,
Yes, 650 was the total
the
budgeted.
total budget, right? I just wanted to, yeah.
So what does this include? Like, what are they doing?
So there's a whole lot of fencing. They are building a parking lot. They are building a storm pond. There's going to be,
It's paved.
yes, paved parking lot, curbs, the whole nine. All conduits are going in for future for the restroom. So we're gonna have power, water, everything's gonna be there, ready to go when we are able to finish. And we're gonna have the dog washing station, that's still happening. Really minor things. But the big one is the parking lot.
You say minor, but you have almost 7,000.
Absolutely.
There's nothing minor about that.
There's nothing minor about the dollar amount, that's for sure.
A lot of it also, besides the materials, a lot of it's the labor cost too. It's increased since in 2019, since we first got those bids.
Yep, lumber costs, and they changed again as of 2 weeks ago. So prevailing wage is not cheap. Our labor costs are huge. And materials. I mean, steel is through the roof. We've got a lot of fencing here. So
Are the bids broken down? Like, I mean, I have no idea, like, what does a dog washing station cost? I mean,
that's a good question, but actually, we just get a lump sum.
just a lump sum,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Are dog wash stations typical in most dog parks?
You know,
Knows?
I don't know that they are all that common.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I haven't been to a lot of dog parks.
I was at Fort Silicon Park on Saturday and the dog park was a fenced. It was a large fence area. I mean, it was acres. But there was a fence around it and that was about it. They had a covered pavilion because I paid attention like, oh, they have a dog park. Let me see what's in there for comparison, because we're looking at one like, well, they have a fenced off area, it was large. I mean, it was pretty big. Cause they were walking around and that was about it. And a covered area. I think they have bathrooms too, but Fort Silicon Park is a
Yeah.
ginormous park with a lot of different.
Was it separated like small dog area, big dog area?
It should be.
Yes.
I'm not sure. I was just, cause I was on the outskirts of it. I was on a half marathon and we get around it, so.
Yes, just to let you know, because I've taken my dogs there before. Yes, they do have, in fact, if I remember correct, it's 3 sections. They got a small dog, big dog, and then a familiarization area
Okay.
where you can kind of like if your dog's first time, it can get socialized in that area.
Yeah.
The big dog area has athletic obstacle things for the dogs to do if they want to do. A very large, I mean, it's almost the size of a football field, soccer field area where they can play fetch with their dogs, throw the ball. And and when it comes down to the restrooms, they're porta potties, which are like just down, not too far away.
Okay. Okay.
Never seen a dog washing station, but I mean, they usually have running water, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
The little, garbage cans and the things with the bags.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway,
Was this turf or like fake grass or real grass?
It's actually going to be, so the outer perimeter around the fencing area will be kind of a gravel path and then mulched in the middle.
no lawn, no turf or lawn.
No turf inside those
Okay.
fenced areas. We'll have turf around,
Right.
but not inside.
So what are we looking at here for moving forward? Are we gonna cut some things off our wish list or what are you envisioning?
I think that we can move forward with the bid that we have. And add restrooms later. That's the hope.
This one that's $43,000 too much.
Cody, do you want to talk about kind of the budgeting portion of it, or Stephanie?
Yeah. So I'll talk and then Stephanie can correct me when I say we spend too much money, so. Out of Fund 302 is where this comes out of. We have no projects budgeted for next year yet because there was some things we think are gonna happen next year, so we saved that money up, so there's about 600,000 in 302 that is unspent and could be used to pay for this extra $50-ish thousand. So there's money in that fund to use that. This money can only be used for parks, building structures, stuff like that. So it's not money that can be used for salaries for somebody else. So there's money in the fund to build this. If that council so wishes to allocate a little more money to build the dog park. So we don't lose the grant money. I think the big part of this is we have a lot of grant money involved. And if we don't use the grant money, we don't get it later.
What's the timeline on that with the grant money? Like,
This year's.
Yeah, we have,
Do we have to start construction or something?
there's two grants and the big one, the 525 has to be spent by June
Of next year?
of next year.
Yes. Yeah.
How big is the area? How many acres?
4.13 miles, or 4.13 acres, sorry. miles.
Yeah. that was it.
4.13 acres. I was thinking about your half marathon and trying to.
So we spend about 40,000 for 525 of grant money, but you have to do this in order to get the grant money or else the grant money disappears.
Correct.
That's REIT money, it's real estate excise tax money in Fund 302, and so it's very specific on what you can spend it for, and this does qualify for that. And like Cody said, there is surplus in there. And so that's would be our recommendation to use that.
But not enough surplus to do the bathrooms.
There is, but you'd be taking a lot of the surplus out. Yes, you could theoretically, if council wanted to budget the entire thing, we would just not have as much money left over in that fund.
You also find money, try to find money in other grants as well for next year.
Yeah, that's what I was, okay.
You said mulch instead of turf of some sort. Can you please explain what you mean by mulch?
It's apparently it's used on other dog parks. It was recommended by our engineer. And I haven't actually seen the material personally, but that was. It's gonna cover the area where we're not gonna have a bunch of undergrowth coming through is the hope.
Every time somebody picks up,
But is it real grass? Is it real?
no, there's no grass at all.
No grass.
It's just mulch. It's basically like playground mulch kind of thing that I'm hearing.
Mulch is vague. It could be the rubber mulch
Uh,
I see on playground.
It's not rubber mulch.
Okay.
Is that?
Well, I thought we were doing the dog grass. That is
You can't
indestructible.
afford the dog grass.
Dog grass.
Dang,
Oh geez, it's gotta be cheaper than the toilets.
I don't know.
it might not
It
be.
was really expensive. I can't remember what the number was. Do you remember, Brian, what that number was?
I don't recall the number, but
Yeah.
it's, you'd have to do more study to find out it'd be worth it on how much water you would save and the fact that how much we save by not having to go out there and mow anymore. Once it's set. So, but I'm just concerned about the mulch in the sense of how thick is it, you know, because just to be honest, to keep undergrowth from coming up, you're looking at 6 inches to almost a foot of mulch. And then it becomes, how stable is that when dogs are out running, doing all the various things that they're doing? And then nothing against dogs, but they eat almost anything. And so what is, is the mulch going to be something that we're going to be liable for when all of a sudden the dog goes and does this little thing?
Well, I can get you some more info on that.
I would appreciate that because I'm just surprised turf is the easiest thing to do and easy to maintain. Mulch over time, you're going to be replacing that.
The concern with the turf is because it is kind of a wet area, it's gonna be soggy. That turf won't hold up. Summertime, it would probably be fine. But in the wintertime, it's gonna get destroyed and it's just gonna be a muddy mess. So that was kind of the thought process behind that.
I would be curious too, how often they have to replace it. 'Cause like I said, when you're picking up after your dog, it's gonna stick to the mulch. So you're gonna be putting mulch in, I mean, I'm sorry, you're gonna be, so, I don't know. Anyway,
I'll get some more specifics on that material.
Do appreciate it. Thank you.
When I think of material, I think of maintenance of the material and how many man hours it's gonna take to replace those things. I'm thinking about that for my own front yard. Do I want rocks or do I want bark? I want rocks because I don't need to move them or replace them. So how many hours are we dedicating future to an employee to maintain this? Or multiple employees? That's what I'm worried about.
That's probably a Cody question.
Is that covered?
But that's
not covered by the grant.
no, our ongoing costs, no.
Yeah.
There will be someone in Parks that does maintain it. I don't know if Cody wants to talk about that or how we do that, but that's.
I could agree and appreciate you guys thinking about our guys and how much they have. I think if you have grass that's maintained with water, that'll be probably just as difficult, as not difficult as throwing more mulch down. And Brad said he'll bring the mulch specs to you guys at the meeting when we go to approve this, so you guys can see what those mulch specs are. I was trying to Google it really quick to pull it up for you, but it's used on a lot of dog parks, and it's easy, safe, and great. So we'll have the specs for you so you can know exactly what it is before you guys have to, or before we ask you to approve it.
Thank you. Could you suggest a dog park that we should visit that you are trying to replicate?
I think we should take a field trip to San Diego. They have a really nice dog park at Mission Beach. So
Never been.
we can take the Girl Scouts with us.
Yes. Cash for them.
There's a lot of different ones we pulled stuff from. So I know a lot in Washington we visited, and there was some that they visited in Idaho and other areas. So we're pulling from a lot of different areas to get kind of the perfect dog park. So
Even if there was one I can visit online where there's aerial or details, I would appreciate that.
some of those options. We can also send you the plans too, so you can see what our dog park will look like.
Yes,
Yeah, we'll
definitely,
see it next week too, when they come up.
please.
I'd say it have to be fenced.
Why did the dog park have to be fenced?
Yeah. If you have your dog and his dog's properly trained, it doesn't need a fence.
So. Originally,
Please add, same thing. Where's dog gonna go? He's gotta come back
they're gonna
sometime.
come into my yard like they do now with off leash.
Where they gonna go though?
They could get hit, they're gonna end up in. the
Control your
neighborhood.
dogs.
Oh,
There are
The fence is for designated pooping areas.
yes.
Okay, I could see that. I mean,
it's an off leash dog park. We want them to be able to let their dogs go crazy. And there's a road right there.
I grew up with dogs without a fence, so I don't understand that. So I'm like,
It's the law.
it's not my experience, okay?
It's to keep the owners in. when the
That's what I
dogs
was
want.
thinking too,
There you
yeah.
go. I think it's more keep the
But it's
owners
also
in.
the law. You have to have your dog on a leash. So.
Thank you, Cody.
All right, anything else? Anything else on that?
I was just gonna ask, will the city be okay with putting some temporary bathrooms there or porta potties or something?
Porta potties,
Yeah,
yes.
so I think it would be important.
Anything else?
We'll consider it. If we have a cost now, so
Okay.
I don't think it's that bad.
Moving on, the city event discussion.
All right,
Cancel.
dive in. So everybody have two. Oh,
Guys,
just one, nothing, thank you. Neither does this girls.
We don't have to sit through the whole thing.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think it's 30 minutes is enough.
You know, be ready.
Here we go.
Anybody else want to move seats, get a better one?
There's lots of room. Only $10 a head. Come on. Front row seats.
Okay, so this is our first attempt to come to you with some significant revisions from the past on how we did things in the past. And so this was the culmination of this over the last probably 2-3 months with multiple different staff members reviewing line by line. We reviewed roughly 15 to 20 other facility guide rental processes in other cities around Washington State. And what we tried to do was took the best from every one of those policies and tried to combine it into one. We did meet with the chamber on one occasion and went through it. Basically what's in front of you is what we went through with the chamber. I don't think any changes have been made other than the recommendation on what came from meeting with the chamber. And I can highlight that when we get there. And as well as our city attorney reviewed all the language in this, in particular, the indemnification portion, which you'll see is quite extensive. More is better. And so what I did was, why you have two different, there's one is just a highlight list of some of the significant changes added. Makes it a little easier to go through and see what was changed rather than going through line by line of the big guide. So all this one does is just kind of highlight the changes that are in there. So I sent this out obviously to everybody last week. I did hear back from a couple council members in the last couple days. Sent you some answers, but I can also go over what their questions were, kind of and how we answered those. So I guess we'll just open it up for discussion. If you want to just kind of go down I can go down the list on the highlights of the changes. Just so I put out there is that we brought this early enough. And so the idea is that we have enough time to come up with something that the majority can agree with before the end of the year, so we can adopt it prior to the season beginning in 2024. So again, I'm gonna open it up for questions, go down, whatever you'd like to do. Go ahead, Josh.
What does the chamber, their number one complaint, or they don't like?
So, and they're here, I mean, maybe they can talk about it.
I'm saying either you or somebody.
I mean, let me just highlight one of the things we added in to give you an example of what was talked about. So one of the things in here we had talked about as a staff is limiting the amount of roads that we close for an event. Because as the events grow and get bigger, the additional roads keep expanding. And obviously we're neighborhoods around us and police department next to us. And so one of the concerns that came up was at some point you have to stop how far you end up closing roads. And it wasn't an issue, and not that it's a significant issue today, but if every event, every weekend wanted to close 4 blocks, that would put a significant strain on surrounding residences and police department and everything else. So we had talked about limiting the area that can be closed off in addition to the park. And so one of the things they had mentioned, or that we had kind of come up with, is that, you know, we could do, if an event wanted to close additional streets, we could do a waiver on a case-by-case basis for that particular event if it is just too big to contain within the parameters we have set. So it wouldn't be something that just automatically approved. And if you ask for 4 blocks, we give you 4 blocks. It would be more of a one-off where we know this is a big event. We've seen it in the past that it's a large event. They definitely could benefit from the space. And then we would just have a separate form where they would request a waiver to it for additional space to be closed. So that was one. I don't know if the chamber had additional input.
2 more additional pieces to that. We had kind of talked about, one was the additional staffing was a concern for us because we do clean up after our events. And I mean, but to pay for additional staffing, that was a concern. And the fee structure, it makes sense, but just how high is that fee structure going to get? Did I miss anything? The waiver was the other big thing. Yeah, those were the big topics, but it makes sense.
When you're talking about the closing off the streets, is that for parking or is that because the event requires that much space?
Yeah, the idea was that the event would just need additional space than what was there.
Do they have the ability to block off that for parking? Because parking is an issue when it comes to events in the tourism here.
So currently, if you rent the community center, most of those events don't use that parking lot for the community center, right? They use it for vendors and whatnot, and the surrounding streets are used for vendors. The main parking lot on the south side of the city of the park is not taken away for parking. That's still used for parking. This area right behind us, I believe over here was used for events. Is that correct, right? At the last barbecue rally, this was used for
Parking.
non-parking. So again, going back to, one of the concerns as far as continuing to expand closing of roads, we do take into account there's got to be parking as well for these, for these events that are very, very well attended and becoming very, very popular. And so that was just one of the things that we were discussing is, and we know we have some options moving forward as a city with additional parking, right? We have the parking lot down here that eventually will be an entire parking lot. We have the streets that'll become one way, which will allow angled parking on both the streets. So there is additional parking in the works, to help out with some of these events. And so that's why, it's one of those things where it's a catch-22 is the event's growing and you want to allow it to grow and expand because you don't want it to go away. Obviously, it's a very, very popular event. And then just taking into consideration the people that live around the park and, access to the police department's one. And they've been, obviously, they have some ways to adjust around limiting access to the Sally Port. So on the street back here, there's Sally Port. And so you don't always have to go into the Sally Port. They would only go into the Sally Port if they had a prisoner they were taking into custody, DUI, something like that. That's a secured area. That's the only access is off this street. So, one of the recommended closures is that we wouldn't, if somebody wanted to close the streets down for activities, we wouldn't block off the Sally Port entrance. Just again, once in a while, it's not a huge issue. It's just that we had to do it every weekend. It could become a major issue. So
I'm looking at Cochrane Park. I remember the Viking Festival last season. That just they got closed off, and that's what I'm wondering is we're going to say we're going to close off, and that's right in the neighborhood. Here we still have businesses and a good chunk of government buildings that we, okay, we close this street off, it's not a big deal. It's not affecting a residence or a business, it's just affecting us as government. But my concern is when we were looking at the closing off and you're saying it's also include parking, we can set up satellite parking and set up ways to get, people move back and forth. It's just trying to think outside the box. You don't need to park at the event. I mean, like the Puyallup Fair, it's grown so big that their satellite parking is at 512. Various other locations, they get the buses involved, they bring people in. It doesn't, there's a small fee, but at one point it didn't cost anything. So that's my concern is if we're closing streets off to allow parking, I don't think that's appropriate. If we're closing streets off because you have vendor space or activity space, then that's appropriate. And I don't see why we're going out 4 blocks for vendor and that kind of space when we are looking at the various parks that we can start setting up and also developing more activity areas.
Yeah, I didn't mention we cleared off anything for parking.
Okay.
But the only time we've ever closed streets is for vendor space. Just additional vendors because the event just can't contain it with it. And I guess, just for clarification. One of the things we did add in the guide, if you'd seen, we did talk about the parking. And it does mention, so if you're a renter and you're using this facility for the first time, it does talk about the limited parking capability and the encouragement to use alternative, ways to transport yourself to and from the events. And so I guess just to go back on, you mentioned Cochrane Park. We have the Viking Festival coming up, and this will be the second year. And last year, probably the biggest concern was the parking, right? And it was very well attended. Probably, I think more attended than what we anticipated or anyone anticipated. And so the idea is, and everybody has seen this, it's number one on both parts is to have an event review committee. And so this event review committee would consider everything that the impacts come with an event. So for example, next year, if the Viking Festival submits an application and the parking is an issue, once again, there would be requirements to remedy some of the parking situation. It would also include the fire department at that point, right? Because it does limit their access up and down that road and it becomes a concern for all public safety. So the event review committee, which is the same committee who basically went through this word by word, they'll be the first line to review any event application. So those types of situations would be discussed. Any impacts would be discussed with the various departments that are impacted. And then those events, such as the Viking Festival, would then come to council for final confirmation or rejection based on council. But the event review committee would look at every one of those factors of all these events. Because every event's different. Some attract significant number of crowds. Some may be controversial. Some may be where that involves a parade or the closing of streets. And so this review committee is intended to look at all the impacts that could exist and then plan ahead, well ahead before those ever happen. And I'll just touch on real quick, because I know it was brought up about the extra personnel, the fee to charging personnel. So one of the things that the committee discussed is some groups come in, they run these events and they have their own volunteers, their own cleanup staff, their own everything. And they do a fantastic job of leaving the park just like they found it. And then you have other groups that require a lot of city assistance to make sure that the park is left in a way that is useful, down the road. And so what the committee would do is, if we do have an existing event, as an example, that just doesn't bring in the volunteers, it's a lot of city time, a lot of city staff, then that group, we could ask them to pay for staffing up front. We could say it's going to, take 2 public works personnel to keep your event functioning the way it needs to be functioning. And based on your prior history, you need to pay for that up front or your event won't be approved. Whereas on the flip side of that, we encourage events to bring, volunteers in to help with those types of things that don't require city staff to run. And so that's where the personnel come in. It's a matter of, again, we're trying to treat groups fairly as possible, but at the same time, it's not fair that some groups can come in and cost the city $3,000 in overtime for their event to be pulled off. And on the flip side, an event comes in and there's no impact to city services. So we're trying to put in some language that can allow us to add that extra piece to make sure that we're representing the taxpayers appropriately when it comes to the impacts to these events.
When you're talking about the city staff to support, is the city staff needed there while the event is going on, or is it after the event has occurred that the city staff is needed?
Yeah,
That
would be something the event review committee, which would consist of the public services director. If he says, listen, in the past, this has been an ongoing problem all day. We're getting called out all day to empty trash, clean bathrooms, you name it. Cody could say, we'll approve your event, but we're going to assign 1 full-time public works personnel to your event at this cost, because it's going to take that. And so that's what we would then send back to the renter, and they could agree with it or not. They don't have to, but that's what we would send back to them. Same way with security. If it's an event that requires security, or there's been issues in the past based on, for public safety issues or public safety concerns, it could be something where the police chief says, well, we'll approve your event, but it's going to take 2 officers full-time to be at your event during that time period. And that was something that when we reached out and we started looking at other policies around for multiple cities, I want to say 95% of them had that language in there that allowed the city to require staff, whether it's public services, police, coordinators, directors of different areas, to be a part of that event. And so as far as how long they would be there, that would be something the review committee would look at and say, is this your first time with this event? Okay, you're going to bring volunteers? Perfect. We'll leave it up to you. If it's their second year, third year, fourth year, and we know that it's been an issue for our staff to maintain it, clean up afterwards, then we would just impose it to begin with and say, we'd love to have you, but we can't keep footing the bill taxpayers can't keep footing the bill to make sure your event is ran the way it should.
For that first year, they're given a little bit of grace.
I think so. I mean, we would want to work with them and say, you know, do you have a plan? Do you have a plan for garbage? Do you have a plan for your bathrooms? Do you have a plan for how are you going to manage those folks? And so if they come up with a great plan, or they may say, listen, we have no plan. Can you give us a body? Yep, here you go. So it just gives us some leeway to work with those different events.
Yeah, I just looking at some of these things listed here as far as for rental equipment. And I'm looking at the barricades and it says add barricades to available rental equipment. And when you think of barricades are part of a thing that is used for public safety. And so if that's a public safety thing, then I see that as a thing, but if it's used for like a beer garden, I can understand the rental of that. But as far as using barricades for public safety, it kind of seems a bit of an overreach to be like, well, we had to use barricade over there, so we're going to charge you for that barricade, that barricade. But barricades are used for public safety, right?
Yeah, that's not, it's referring to using barricades. Exactly what we had mentioned. It was for a beer garden.
That makes a clarification.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to just all of a sudden barricade, but we're just.
Yeah.
It's not.
And so the reason we put that language in is because the city came upon a significant number of barricades. And they look good, they're professional looking, they work. If you're to run a beer garden, the explanation or the definition of a barricade is a little bit gray.
Yeah.
And so we found it just be appropriate. We have them, they're available, they're professional looking. You know, it's just use the barricades we have. That way everybody's doing it the same way.
And my only other question again, and just for, I don't know, educational purposes, with the adding in the option for event vendors to obtain a temporary event authorization license in place of a state license. And so then it kind of says, because we know that businesses have state license. So is the state license not sufficient enough? So, because it says in place of a state license.
Yeah, so, no, so you can have a state license and you don't need the temporary license. This is just what happens is you'll get vendors who will come in. We see this with the farmers market as well. And we see this with a lot of the different events is vendors may come in for the 1-day event. And you know, this might be the only event they're going to do all year. They just want to come in, they want to be a part of it. They go through the process to get a state license, then a city of Yelm business license. What we're finding is a lot of them will go, you know what, I'm out. Forget it. It's just easier for me not to be a part of it. And so in talking with the event organizers, and again, this has been a ongoing challenge, is some of the cities around us will use temporary vendor licenses or permits.
And that's if they don't have a state
Right.
license.
Yeah, if they have a state license, that's fine. That works great.
So they don't need to do anything else
Right.
besides.
No, this is just for if they don't have any of that.
Okay.
They could literally walk into the front counter, get a temporary, you know, and I don't know what it is, 3-day permit, whatever, right? 3-day permit. We give them a form, they take it with them, they can operate for that particular event. So the idea was to come up with another option to make it easier for folks to do business in the city without, you know, well, 2 things. One is it's not the best use of our staff time to try to contact every vendor that ever signed up to do an event. And as you know, most of us know is these vendors come in literally up into the last minute. And so, you know, and the organizers could give us a list the week before of the event, and we could go through our, you know, due diligence to check and make sure. And then they had 10 more in that last week. The other issue with that is that all that staff time is put into making sure these folks have the appropriate license. Many of the folks, if they get the Yelm license attached to the state license, there's no cost to it. Right. Because they don't sell enough for that. And so
my question too, with the state license, that supersedes the city, or you have to
always have both.
You have to have both. So if you have both, the temporary thing's not necessary,
Right.
but if you don't have either
Right.
one, better
Yes.
get yourself a temporary
Yes.
license, 3-day pass.
That's the
Sell me
intent.
some donuts
Yeah.
in the corner.
That's the intent of that.
Cool. You said the turnaround for getting that temporary license is they walk in and they walk out?
Well, and again, that's from what we understand. We don't have it in place yet. We wanted to kind of get the feel of the council first. If that's a path you want us to go down, to look into, you know, to make it that way. So we know that other cities do it. We know that it's feasible.
It's just a different process that we would implement. But after, I can tell you, after being a part of multiple events this year where our city staff are spending countless hours of trying to make sure folks have the appropriate licensing in place to do business. We got to come up with a better system.
One more thing, you've consulted the chamber, the farmers market. I don't see them present.
I don't either.
Were they invited?
We didn't invite anybody to this. They,
This is public record. This is public meeting. I know it's
Public meeting.
yeah,
But it
so
seems like they sought out a conversation with you. Did you seek out a conversation with them?
Farmers market.
Yeah.
They're online.
yeah.
See that?
So let me go back.
Now you raised our hand.
So with when we met with
We
the
don't.
farmers market in May, June, Mayor. Remember something like that? When there was some concerns with their business licensing.
Yeah.
And that's where we discussed a few different options. One was a master license option. And then one was a temporary license. And then, and also our tax
Analyst. Tax analyst.
yeah, was there to discuss the process to help, get them. So the idea was, again, this temporary thing would be beneficial for folks wanting to come to the farmer's market on any given weekend. And maybe they just want to do it once or twice a year and that's it. So the idea of the temporary license is purely just to try to make it simple. We want vendors to come. We want them to do business at these events. And we're just trying to come up with a better way to make that happen. So.
Great.
Two questions. So since you just brought that up. Could we just say if you have a Washington business license, you're good to go? You don't need no other license besides that.
If you have your state and city license.
If you have your state license. You're registered in the state of Washington to do business. Can we say that's good enough?
Yeah, I'd have to ask.
I don't think.
I don't think so. Right.
Either have to. It's against our code right now.
I was gonna say, 'cause I know most cities require you to have an endorsement for city to do business.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's like a $35 fee per year.
yeah. So I don't think that's possible.
Second, so you say consulted with the chamber about this, have they seen the final draft? You said it's final draft, right?
Yeah, this is pretty much the last one we went over with.
Okay.
Section.
Have they been given
I
that?
don't know if you guys have this.
You guys have final draft? Okay, I just
Yeah,
wanna see what your comments on the final draft.
I guess since we keep pointing out the chamber, the other question that I have as far as the conversation goes is that the entities that are actually renting the park. And the question of having a business license. The chamber has never had a city of Yelm business license. For any time, at any time in the entire existence that we have been a chamber. And we rented the park for the barbecue rally and paid a security deposit of which we cannot get back because we do not have a city of Yelm business license. We have tried to go through Department of Revenue to get your endorsement and are unable to do that. So I think there's.
Is it because it's a nonprofit?
I assume it's not, yeah, because it's not profit. Yeah. We've tried multiple times. I know. So I think that there probably needs to be something as far as renting any space. If you're going to hold the security deposit because you don't have a business license.
That's the first I've heard of it.
Yeah, I didn't know
So
that.
we'd have to look into that. and get back to you. Who did you talk to at the city?
Sarah.
And you, sorry, you mentioned you were 501(c)(3) and you do have a license with the city of Yelm. Okay.
I had to have all of my licenses. When I was told by the city that I had to have all my licenses.
There's no
I went
fee to it.
above and beyond.
Oh, I understand. I saw him say something, so I wanted to just, yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
We have been unable to do that.
it was hard. It took a very long time,
Mm-hmm.
but we got ours.
Other questions, comments about? What you have in front of you?
With that.
Yeah, who's gonna be following up with all of that?
You say, yeah, it's a good idea to look into that, but who's gonna do that? Who's responsible?
Yeah, I guess.
Is what I'm asking.
Well,
So
Sarah's back.
Sarah, yeah, Sarah's out this week.
Yep.
So it will be next week before we can follow up with that.
Yep,
Yeah, just,
follow up with Sarah directly and find out what.
No, thank you.
and then as number 11, the application denial. And I think you mentioned a little bit, it's added language that allows the city to deny an application based on several factors. Is that the city, or is that the city council, or is that, so allows the denied application to be appealed?
Yeah, so the ultimate denial would have to come from council. So if the event review committee wanted to recommend that an event not be approved for whatever reason, that would still come to city council. The city council would have the ultimate approval or denial of any event based on whatever
Could
factor.
events just pass by without our approval?
What's that?
Could events pass by without our approval?
Council.
Still has to.
Yeah, you have to approve them. Yeah,
No matter, so that would be every event.
it'd be the events that are listed on the very front page here. Any of those events under the municipal code 968-080. Those, any of those events that are come through that fit that criteria have to go through, will go through city council.
Let's check.
Any other questions on that? Thank you. Discussion, how to move forward with the YMCA Historic Museum Library.
I'll leave that one. So talks are still continuing with the YMCA. We've had multiple conversations now with their CEO, Al Crump. We were gonna have a meeting at the end of last month with the steering committee. And then present to council tonight on what those results are. I wanted to hold off. He's got some connection, or he's having some meeting with the Nisqually tribe and some other partners that he wanted to bring before the steering committee met and have more information. It's still moving forward. Lastly, we discussed new partners, including a medical facility, the historical museum / library. And so that kind of takes us into the other piece of this, which is the historical museum, where they're at, in the library where they're at, and where we want to see them going. Currently, the historical museum, as you know, sort of our commission at the moment, temporarily due to that house needing major improvement, not house, but it was an old house, but it's the historical museum building. Cost what was it, 350 renovations?
300,000 to 400,000, depending on if there's lead or asbestos, which they believe there is probably both.
So in lieu of that, we're trying to figure out another more permanent solution rather than repair that building. One such solution is something that Todd came up with.
Go ahead, take it.
No, putting them in our new buildings that we have acquired through our purchase by the Mill Road. And we're still, have we figured out if we've gotten in there yet, or is the deed completed?
Yeah, it's so the quiet title time is up. So there's no claim on that property. So now it's just a matter of finishing the closing on the whole property. So
You want to kind of talk what that would look like then with the buildings and what it would take to get them in there and all?
yeah, so the existing building that they were in was about 900 square feet of usable space that they used. And so Cody and I looked at the square footage of the two structures that are on the property that we're purchasing. Combined, they're about, what, one was 8 and one was 450.
I think it's like 1,300.
Right around 1,250 to 1,300 square feet, and the two buildings combined. One's a little bit larger than the other one. There's a lot of unknowns yet until we get in there as far as the structure itself and if they're sound enough to be used temporarily. And then there's the question of the existing use of that parcel and what it was used for, what it was classified as last in regards to if it's too much of significant change of use, then it requires, of course, parking lots and everything else. So there's a lot of that still would have to be determined. But as far as coming up with a temporary solution, especially with our centennial coming up next year, it may be something that we could do temporarily. And in more of a longer term discussion, it's actually a pretty good location to have such like a museum, for example. It's highly visible on the state route there. And so it may work down the road as well
for that area to maybe house a future museum. But that's obviously well beyond what we're talking about here. But anyway, that's kind of the idea. Cody, is that about right as far as the use of it goes? And,
Yeah,
looking at it, but
When do you foresee being able to get in?
within the next month, we'll have it.
I'm just kind of curious why we're not discussing the EIC. Last time it was brought up, I forget how many weeks ago, it was brought up that, oh, hey, we decided to just nix it. Doing the research, the EIC has been on our agenda 3 times only. Once with, under the old administration, when it was introduced, discussed and brought up of, hey, we can get this grant. Do we want to go move forward? Move forward, it happened. Second time it was brought up officially was when Director Colt presented the study that the community was involved in, what the plan was, some ideas and a concept of what it would look like. And the third time was brought up during a study session when a council member said, can we just push this off? In other words, we still have this EIC that, if I remember correct, the concept is a minimum of 3 stories. First floor could be the historical museum with the artifacts and things like that. Second story was where the library was going to get moved into. And the third story was going to be classrooms that could be adjustable, kind of like the community center is, which would give space for, I know the chamber has its own place to go and have meetings. So I'm just going to use this example, though, that if the chamber doesn't need that large of a space to hold an executive session or something, they can have a smaller space to rent, a little bit more affordable. Same thing for a place where Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, game clubs, things like that could utilize. And yet we've had the discussion, well, for 2 years now. And it's only been brought up 3 times. And I'm wondering why we're not considering the EIC, which if we had just stayed on point with it, discussed it, we could probably have it out for bid right now. And I mean, with building and with the right builder, could probably be finished in time for next year for a centennial celebration of the grand opening. And here's this beautiful museum piece, the library on the 2nd floor. We can sell the property that the library is sitting in for anywhere from $1 to $2 million, which helps cover the cost of the EIC. I got the feeling that we have forgotten an asset that we had brought forward, that the community was involved in the discussion. If I remember correct, Director Cole, you can correct me on this. There were multiple community meetings where they came and community members said, this is what we want to see. And by us 2 times officially having it on the agenda, and a 3rd time a council member saying, can we just push this off? We ignored what the community had to say. We literally ignored what our community members had elected us to work on, that we put forth time and effort, and the grant money that we received to develop this concept, which, do we still have some of that grant money, or is the rest of it?
Just design.
What was that?
It was just design.
Okay, no, what I meant for the grant money is that, do we still have more to help us, finalize that design, or is
The design was completed.
okay? So I mean, we have everything right there. All we have to do is look at it, look at a cost. And as I say, yes, I want to see a YMCA brought here as well. YMCA, could we get it done by next year or in 2 years? Complete, finished, built, ready to occupy? Because I think the EIC, we might be able to get built and occupied by next year, because we already own the land. We already planned on it.
May I?
Yeah, go right ahead, Mayor.
Sure. So your timeline's right on that. We did speak about it 3 times or so. The last time it was just more than 1 council member, though, as you allude to. It was multiple council members, the majority from what I gathered. Hold on. It was most of the council that from what I'm seeing nods from the other council members is recollecting similar, maybe not everyone actually wasn't on, or excuse me, Councilmember Brooks wasn't on. But yeah, a lot of them didn't think that was the right move to move forward with that. I agreed with the council as well. I think that when you're having 2 major projects like that in a YMCA and EIC, we kind of got to choose our where we want to spend all that money. And it wouldn't have been built in like a year or two. This is like a multi-million-dollar project. The EIC would have been over $10 million, multi-story building. When you're competing with a 20 million versus a $10 million project, you gotta, I mean, you don't have to, but with the
Then I
size.
understand that, then what we should
Hold on,
do-
hold on, please,
Well, I
Councilman.
thought this was.
I know, but I listened to you speak. Let me get mine now. So with all that, we have to choose which project we really want to concentrate on. The YMCA seems like it's something that is more usable for the rest of the community, as well as being able to house the museum and library, just as the EIC did, but with a lot more partners and a lot more funding that's hopefully going to be available.
Okay, and I think we should have put it on the agenda to have an actual vote and not just during a study session. Because I remember two of the council members for sure. One of them is no longer a council member with us, that, their view is, and you can go back, their view is grant money. Why are we spending grant money? Take that money, give it back to the citizens who paid into it, which that's not how grants work. We can't do things like that. We should have had an official vote saying discontinue, take the plans, tear them up, burn them, whatever it might be. We're never going to talk about this again. All we have done is we have pushed off for over a year about the discussion of the EIC. And that's a year that, as we just learned with the dog park, labor costs went up how much? Other costs went up, that we could have locked in some things. And yeah, that $10 million to have the EIC, again, you're right, maybe not finished in a year, 2 years. The YMCA, we don't even know where it's going to go. The EIC, we had the property already. The YMCA, we don't know who all is going to pay into it. And if I remember our discussion of the study session, we're going to have to put together a vote to the residents of Yelm and the residents of Yelm only to have a levy or a bond passed to raise how many millions of dollars to build it? Because we as a city have to put in this much money. And we don't even know, we're still waiting to hear who all's putting up money. If I remember the person, when he briefed us on it, he said that other participants of the fundraising, they kind of want to see who all is going to be giving money before they start committing money. Again, I just think that we've failed to follow procedure correctly. The EIC is what I would consider old business. It's still sitting out there. And
You might consider old business, but it's not old business. As a council member, you have every right to bring it up at any of these meetings. You just need a second, which you haven't had on that. If you want to put it up a study session, I'd be more than happy to.
We don't need a study session on it anymore. We already had the study session. We had the briefing on it. We had everything. And
then ask for a second and put it up to a vote. Be happy to do it.
Okay.
I have a comment. So there's two separate conversations here. This is not a conversation about the EIC, this is a conversation about the YMCA.
No, but it includes the historical museum and library. We're trying to
That's just an idea to put in the EIC. It wasn't like we're going to do this. It was an idea.
Right.
Like, hey, we could put this in here. We could put this in the YMCA. We could put this in its own separate building.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of different discussions on that. This is a discussion on how to move forward with the YMCA.
It is how to move
Not the EIC.
Let him finish.
It's not a discussion on the EIC. It's a discussion on the YMCA. Now, if you want to talk about the EIC, that's a separate discussion.
Okay, but you
have that time.
you just brought up City
Wait, let him-
Administrator
let him-
Stansel's
You know,
suggestion
let
of
him finish.
using the Mill Creek, the Mill Road property that we're in the process of purchasing, that when we had the discussion of the purchasing of it, it was to refurbish the pond, so it could be a reflection thing, and as well as moving the Veterans Memorial there. And now I'm hearing, nope, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put the museum there.
No, that's not, can you let him, just let him,
Go ahead.
let's let him finish and then.
Go ahead and finish. Well, you're saying this is
Don't-
YMCA only, but we just all of a sudden brought up the Mill Pond. So I brought up the EIC.
And
Yeah,
that's fair,
we
but
can-
let him finish
Yeah.
his thought.
I'm saying we can have that discussion. But I would like to keep this contained to, do we want the museum and library tied in with the YMCA as brought forward? Like, hey, this idea, I want to put these together, yay or nay. The EIC, okay, you're very passionate about that. We can have that discussion. But I would like to stick to first whether or not to have it at YMCA, and then you talked about EIC, the passion for that, which we discussed before. I would just like to kind of keep it kind of more compartmentalized if we could.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe the museum could be temporarily housed at the location if it works. But I'm tending to agree with Brian. I don't remember putting it totally on the back burner, and that was a discussion years before a YMCA. And he's right, two of those things, housing, what we're talking about was designated for the EIC. So I would also like to put it back on the table because it's actually right here in my notes. Thank you.
So I am, in regards to the museum library, I'm not a fan of putting it with the YMCA. I'm a fan of keeping those separate because I've seen YMCA closes. And there's just a lot of questions I still have about how that would look and how it would react. So there's a ton of questions. So right now I would lean against that because I have a lot of unanswered questions.
What are some of those questions?
Of this, what happens if the YMCA closes? Because they do close. Okay, where would those properties go? Where would those entities be? How would that happen? You know, would we lose facilities that we want with the YMCA? Would that detract? Like, you know, like we want multiple swimming pools, indoor courts, I think is an important thing that people want, you know, basketball courts, etc. That we don't have. Because they're used for storage and other things that we have in the city that we could access. So those kind of questions of, okay, well, I'd rather have this than this, but I don't want it either or, I want both. So, you know, some of those, I mean, we can, you know, look into further how to draw those out. And then my big two questions in regards to the YMCA, because I have a lot of questions and I'm not for sure yes or no on it, let's say. So the city of Yelm paid for YMCA study. I never seen it. I would like to see that study that the city of Yelm paid for. And I would like to see a prospectus from the YMCA. Because the YMCA is a multi-billion-dollar international company. They should have a prospectus readily available for what they plan to do. Because if you do anything, if you open a Chick-fil-A franchise, they'll give you a whole list of you need this, 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 and this. I haven't seen that. I would like to see that from the YMCA. Being as big as they are, they should easily have that available. Without a question.
I would like to add to this conversation and say that I don't believe that it would be best to put the historical museum with the YMCA. The library, I would entertain. A portion of the library system is in a shopping mall, so having that accessible makes sense. But YMCA and historical museum, I don't think those two mix, my personal opinion.
I do not think we have enough information or numbers to make a decision about the YMCA. It's an ongoing conversation.
We're not making any decisions.
No, I know, but yeah, we want to keep talking about it, and we never even got a straight answer on how much would it cost the average citizen to join the YMCA, and can they afford it with that extra income? What do you call that?
It was a so they did say it was kind of like a sliding scale. They wouldn't turn away anyone. If someone couldn't afford it, they would give them a scholarship for it.
Right.
And that would be in a prospectus.
Yeah, okay. I would just like to tag on, I'm also not a fan of having the historical museum with the YMCA. For partly like what Ashley said, they don't seem to go together, but also I know there are concerns about having a pool and humidity, which I know it would be in another part of the building, but you'd probably have to have, I don't know, some sort of something to keep it, make sure it's dry and climate control.
Separate buildings.
Well, not separate buildings, but a separate area.
I would make it separate.
Well, no, I think it should be, but I'm saying if it was in the Y, that would be a concern.
Yeah.
Is what I'm
Oh, yeah, no, totally. I have a pool, I know.
We also discussed merging the artifacts of the museum within the library. Remember that discussion? And then you only need one place for both of those things.
Absolutely. So it's a possibility too. So anyway.
I think the historical museum is pretty pressing, though. We have had a lot of conversations outside of this room.
But maybe a temporary situation would work.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I'm not against a YMCA. I just know that if it was to go up to a bond or levy, with everything increasing, especially with insurance costs going up and the cost of living going up, everybody's in a real pinch right now, and I don't see it to be a wise time to ask people to give more. You could put it up to the vote of the people regardless. I just don't see it to be that. I'd love to see one, but I don't know if that's gonna be the best route to go. Especially when you already have that the school is coming in and looking for bonds and levies, and then we're competing with that. And so we've got to really think about when and how we're gonna ask the taxpayers to give more of their money.
If we did go out for a bond, which I think if we move forward with a major project like the YMCA, we'd have to go to the bond, or to the people for a vote. I personally wouldn't want to do it otherwise. It kind of gives them buy-in, well, it does get them buy-in, it's their taxpayer dollars. I would think that the folks of Yelm would support it. I know it's gonna compete with we always compete with everybody, whether it's in the city of Yelm hasn't put up a bond for well over a decade. I think the last one was the library bond or the public safety.
Community center.
So I don't think that's necessary. I mean, schools, they're gonna be doing their levies all the time. They're gonna do a construction bond. I mean, they got done with their biggest one, $100 million, just recently. I don't think they're gonna be asking for a huge one in the near future. And of course, we would work with them to make sure that we don't compete. We wouldn't want to do it on the same ballot as they do. Same with the fire authority. We wouldn't want to compete with them as well. We'll absolutely work with them. As far as different building or different services being in the library or being a YMCA, I think it makes it more affordable. I get your concerns, especially with the preservation of those artifacts and make sure that it's climate controlled and all that. And if we did move forward with them in there, it would absolutely be something that we'd bring up, and we'd bring it up in the steering committee, make sure that Kyle was aware of that. I do want to mention though that the library, like I think Councilmember Crossman said, we could likely sell, and I don't know if it was you or someone else, maybe it was Hess, excuse me. But we bought it for $1 million. I'm thinking we'd get more than $1 million now. It's 2010 or a little bit before that when we bought it. That'll give us good seed money for whatever project we want to come up with to house the library. That being said, I'm going to take all these questions back to Kyle. We'll meet with the steering committee. We'll likely meet again next study session next month. Hopefully have some answers, some of the questions you've had, and we'll get more of what it could look like if we wanted to go through a bond or if we wanted to pay through it with a votable bond or a non-votable bond. However we wanted to decide we want to move forward, we'll figure that out.
Could we get before that study that the city paid for?
The what?
The study that the city paid for,
Yeah.
could we get that
Feasibility study?
ahead of time? Like,
I will ask them for that.
it'll be pretty quick, I would assume.
Probably, yeah.
Didn't we also discuss the possibility of us building our own pool and owning the pool,
I don't
the
think-
city owning the pool?
I don't think that was ever part of the discussion.
Let's throw it around.
It was discussed,
Like,
but
do we need a YMCA or do we need a pool?
the thing is, in reference to the community.
Stephanie's probably
looking over here.
I can,
It's very expensive.
How much is in that thing?
Not enough.
The insurance as well, liability, it's just all around very expensive. That's why we.
I read the book, yes.
Schools can have.
We have a lot of money to do that.
Like
They have a lot of money, yeah, exactly.
Five has a pool,
Add it
they've
to the
had
high
the pool a
school.
long time.
And then we could have a swim team at the high
It
school.
was a high school. They have a lot of money.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of partners that can be part of this and are already part of this conversation. We're
Yeah.
trying to tie them up, or get them all together and move forward with the actual, something we can present to council, that we can take action item on.
Well, my other question, to that point is, are they going to produce a packet, let's say, of information to approach people that want to invest in a YMCA?
Yes, so why would I?
Influential people.
Yes, yep, that's part of that
We
conversation.
could get Bill Gates to just build it for us.
Yeah,
Do you know?
No,
Shoot him a text after this.
but I did email Tyler Lockett and he has not returned my call. Can you give me his state company? And I'm like,
No, I did.
never. will be.
So lastly, again, on the white or also on the library, we do spend a decent amount of money each year in maintenance and upkeep on this, between 25 and 50,000, I think is any given year. Depending on if the HVAC needs replaced or whatever repairs need to be. So it does cost us a lot just to have it there. Whether we move it to the YMCA, which I hope we do, but if we don't want to move it somewhere else, I hope we move it somewhere it's a little more affordable. You know, smells big and nice, but they're being very creative with TRL and where they put these in. They can,
Yeah.
you know, one's in the mall, one's in Lacey at Hawks Prairie, just next to like a,
In the summer, it was in like a van.
and it can be in a van down by the river. But any other questions on the flyer, any of those library, museum?
Did you say study session or?
Yes. Studies, well, the retreat too, well, that'll be a big item,
Yeah.
as well as our 500 or 640 acres. We'll be talking about that, which I don't want to steal. We're not gonna be talking about that tonight, are we? No, but we do have. We have numbers on that, and not numbers, but we have more details to give out and all that.
After retreat.
Right.
In reference to the YMCA, I brought it up when we had the Kyle here, I believe was here, that we create I think it's called the municipal park district that includes part of the surrounding area. And then from there, do the bond that way instead of asking the residents of Yelm to foot the bill first. And so if you could find out how long it would take and if it would be even feasible to go through that process to get the YMCA funded.
That's a possibility, yeah. Anything else?
All right, mayor's report.
All right, well, I think at our next study session, this will be on there, but besides that, I think we'll be ready to talk about 640 acres, that meeting, is that correct? Yeah. we'll be-
on there, yeah.
We will be talking, we've been discussing this for years now, and this was the last kind of, you know, whether or not we needed the over study and how much habitat they have in there and all that. Turns out it's a pretty small amount for the most part. But we can start figuring out what we want to do with that and either getting rid of it, selling it, hopefully maintaining it as a master plan community, but it's for the council to decide and discuss. So we'll talk about that. Other than that, I'll be going to the historical museum, historical societies meeting tomorrow and going over some things that we discussed as well as what they want to see for their museum. I did, and I think Ashley was there at that last community conversation where they suggested something that was kind of cool, or I don't know, it was Cody or someone, but anyway, someone mentioned that if we have a video recording of them, like in Interstellar, at the end, like is a museum that tells you the history of Ashley, do you want to?
I think it was one of our constituents that suggested that. It wasn't one of us.
Do you remember the idea of it though?
It was recording them because they are living history, every one of them. And we're gonna lose these stories.
So that's a possibility. We're gonna bring it up to them, see what their thoughts are on that. And that's about all I got. Excuse me.
That it?
Yes, and I don't mean to suggest anything to how you want to run your meeting, Ollie or Councilor Smith, but I know Josh or Councilmember Crossman has a.
Well, is that initiatives though?
It is.
All right.
So we're out there.
All right.
You want to go to him first, times.
You want me to go to him first?
I think it'd be prudent, yes.
Don't tell me I can run a meeting and then tell me.
Yeah.
to run it.
You should just do the opposite.
He does.
No, do it live.
All right. I got you guys some notes in note-taking paper. I handed you guys out because I came prepared today. One of you all. So I have discussion, see where you guys are at. I am no way, shape or form set on one action or another. But how to include the citizens that live outside of city limits into what goes on with the city. So I've gathered a few ideas, talked with a lot of people, because there's a lot of, the majority of Yelm lives outside of city limits. They don't live in city limits. Majority of people that shop here, spend their money here, they go to school here, they own businesses here. They all live outside of city limits. And you hear this complaint a lot, there's many in the audience here that live outside of city limits. But their businesses, and everything they do is within city limits, and so what we do affects them. And so I feel what they are saying is they should have a voice, you know, or is their voice being heard? And I feel for that because I've only lived in city limits for the last 9 years, but I've been a member of Yelm for my whole life. I grew up on the other side of the river in Roy, but I never went to Roy. Everything was in Yelm. You know, I graduated class of 96, top 10. And I've been in Yelm proper. I always call it Yelm proper for about the last 9 years, but I've always been in Yelm my whole life. So according to some numbers for you, the 2020 census, this was I was shocked. The Yelm School District included 32,958 people. The Yelm city limits had 10,617. So that means 2/3 of the people that call Yelm home basically live outside of city limits. So if you go down the main drag, imagine all those businesses that are owned by people that live outside of city limits. Imagine if they weren't here. Imagine if we, like myself, I own a business here. If I only had to survive on people that lived in city limits, I would not have a business. Because so few of my clients live in city limits, because it's so small. And so, and there's a lot of people that live outside of city limits, they buy the place, not realizing they are outside of city limits. They think they are in city limits. You go to the Pines, a lot of people live in the Pines. I was shocked. I didn't know this until, well, I mean, my business, because the way I do my business is I had to pay sales tax based on where the house is. So I have to look at where's this house at, who gets the sales tax money from it. And the Pines is outside city limits. So I was like, what? There's a house right, I could see a house from my house that is Thurston County. They don't pay city taxes, they pay Thurston County taxes. It's crazy. I met a couple weeks ago, Jose and Cleo. They live out in Clearwood. They got stationed here at Fort Lewis. They bought a house sight unseen. He was getting stationed in Fort Lewis, need a house, bought a house like in Yelm. Yelm's close to Fort Lewis. Sweet, that's a short commute. So I'm like, hey, where do you guys live? They're like, Clearwood. I'm like, oh, yeah, how was that? They're like, yeah, we didn't realize it's not a 20-minute drive. We thought we were in Yelm. It said Yelm, they're in Clearwood. So, I think the majority of people are probably like that move here because we have a lot of military. They don't know the area, they move out here. You know, you have Scenic Shores, you have the Pines, you have North Yelm, you have Clearwood, you have all these neighborhoods that comprise of these, you know, another 20,000 people. They're not living on 10, 20, 100-acre plots of land to live in a country. They're buying a piece of property that they can afford a house at. It says in Yelm, but they're not in Yelm. And so, you know, I feel like we are telling Thurston County, we disapproved to tell Thurston County how it should be zoned outside of city limits. We're telling the county how we want it to be zoned. Councilmember Hess wants to create a park district to tell people that live outside of city limits how they should be paying taxes and be doing this stuff. And so talking to these people, I think they should have a voice. Now, how that voice should be formed, I don't really know. There's So I've collected 4 ideas. I pass you guys out so you take notes. And I have my pros and cons on each. Some I like, some I don't, but these are just all the ones that I got back heard from people. And so number 1, the first idea, well, not first, but one of the ideas, these are not in any particular order, is they have a voting seat on council. Somehow we work a seat on council that they can vote and everything like that. I don't see how that's possible. I mean, maybe it is. I think that would be a very hard thing to pursue, but that's an idea. I'm just giving it forward. The second idea is to have a citizen at large. It's called, wait, if somebody's on council that lives outside of city limits, they don't have a vote, but they have a voice. They're here, they participate, they don't vote. Again, I'm interested in that. I don't know how that would work. And then my third idea was an advisory committee. You have a committee based like somebody that owns a business inside the city that lives outside city limits. You have a homeowner, maybe somebody on a planning commission. You have, committee like we have a homeless committee, something like that gets together. They can bring forth issues to the city that we can listen and talk about. And then the fourth idea is basically we do nothing, encourage people to speak at council if they like to, join whatever boards or committees that will allow them to, and just pretty much continue on the way we go. So my idea is just, present these ideas and see what the council, if you guys are on board, if one or a couple things you're interested in, want to pursue, look forward into, just kind of bringing this issue to discussion, because that's what study session is for. Talk about things.
I just got one thought on that. So people that run on the school board are outside of city limits and they can run on the school board. That includes that, right? But they can't run for, that just, yeah.
They represent people that live out in that
Yeah.
district though.
Yeah.
That's different.
Each
Yeah.
one does.
To-
And we're not in districts.
No.
That's the difference.
The school district goes across county lines as well. They have McKenna, Roy.
Own community schools.
Yeah, but they don't, it's not just Yelm though. It's outside of Yelm too.
It's on,
It's
yeah.
the name, it's just the name.
I want to try to clarify a few things that were stated, and good presentation, Councilman Crossman. One, you made the statement that we as a city were telling the county what to do with property outside, which is slightly false. We have our urban growth area. And what we were doing is we were working with the county to make sure that somebody who has property that one day can get annexed into the city, that we have zoning that is appropriate so that when somebody all of a sudden gets annexed in, they all of a sudden aren't running into a zoning issue. They're not running into a problem of, okay, I was zoned in the county as 1 per 5 acre. And now when the city annexed, it's all of a sudden 12, it's a R12 or a high density, and and other properties around them are becoming high density and they're kind of sitting there, which we don't force them, as Director Colt will tell you, they're grandfathered in until the property is sold or until they do some kind of major thing on it. In reference to my suggestion of the municipal park district, yes, that would include people outside of the city of Yelm, but the people who run that district, it's not us that tells that district what to do. If I remember correct, there's also a board that will represent that district. So they will have a voice and they will be able to have a say of what happens.
They'd have to vote themselves into that too.
Right. And in reference to when you say a business owner who lives outside of the city has no voice, I'm going to, and Chamber, please correct me if I'm wrong on this. You are the voice of businesses here in Yelm, correct? Which means if you have a legislative person who can come up every meeting, and for example, one of the issues we have is we have no retail space to put small businesses. If you came up every meeting and spent your 3 minutes listing off 40 businesses that are looking for retail space, that's going to tell us, the council, hey, there's 40 businesses looking for retail space. Not only that, but it's going to tell all the developers There's 40 businesses that are looking for retail space. So they do have their voice. Additionally, they can still walk in here and say something and state, I own the masonry and the zoning or the codes or this that you're about to pass is going to affect me. Lo and behold, we're going to pay attention because they said they own that. The property owners, same thing. They can come in here and talk to us and communicate. They have a voice. Where I think there is the gray, the murkiness that's here is somebody who lives outside the city has concerns of what's going on within the city, the codes we're passing, the laws we're passing, whatever it is that affects people in the city, and they want to have a say about that. And if they all of a sudden start getting a majority and they are the ones who are coming forward and speaking, and we have very few Yelm residents, all of a sudden, business owners, property owners, or actual residents coming and speaking, we're all of a sudden listening to the voice of Thurston County, and we're about to affect things, such as what happens if a large group of people outside the city all of a sudden say, we want this and it's going to cost us money. And because we're not asking the question which used to be asked on the blue card, where do you live? Are you a Yelm resident or not? If we have a large amount of people all of a sudden coming in telling us how to spend our money, and we go, oh, hey, that's what the people want. And then all of a sudden we have Yelm residents going, what are you doing? See, and that's that murkiness. Yes, they live in Yelm. That's because the post office said 98597 is Yelm.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. First on your voting seat on the council, I don't think that's possible. Legally, I don't think we can add another seat.
These are all the ideas I got.
And I grew up outside the city limits too, at Lake Lawrence. I get it. Everyone shops here. They go to schools here, but they can't necessarily vote unless they're a city resident. And part of that, I think, is just how the society is, how government's set up, whether it's Washington State or whether it's Oregon, whether it's a small town here or a big town somewhere else. Those are the norms that we have right now. And without a huge change in the way our government is governed, is run, I don't think that's going to change. But I do feel you. I mean, I hear you on the wanting other people have the voice. Those folks that are obviously a very big integral part of this community have a voice. To that end, I am going to, at least for the business community, if you're a business owner in Yelm, similar to the quarterly military meetings, I'm going to start hosting a roundtable for businesses, a business roundtable quarterly as well, where you don't have to necessarily be inside the city limit. We'll obviously communicate with the chamber and make sure their members are aware. But if you have grief about our sign code or whatever, we can, chat about it there, and we can discuss it and hopefully bring it, and I'll invite council members as well, up to 3, and we'll go from there. But that's at least to address some of those. I know there's a lot more that you'd want, but just for that portion at least, I think we can address some of those concerns. That's my 2 cents on it.
I'm just curious, and I don't know, and I don't know if anybody knows, are there any, because Yelm is kind of, as far as I know, because we've got these like the Pines, but you've also got Clearwood, which is huge, and it's almost like its own community. But it's far out. Do we know, I mean, is there another city or
Tacoma, Puyallup?
I understand what you're saying. Those are larger. I'm looking more, I'm just curious if there's another more.
All the little towns have that.
So
Right here to Tenino, they're all like that.
They do, but I feel like we're really, I don't know.
We're the most happening city.
Populous, yeah.
I think
there's also a difference between incorporated and unincorporated cities as well.
true.
Like Rainier's incorporated.
Right.
Although City of Roy is incorporated, McKenna's not. I mean, it's a very similar I mean, it looks like a city, but it's not incorporated.
But like Rainier doesn't have like a Clearwood. I know they have areas, don't.
Sure, oh, I see what you're saying.
It's like we have these, we gotta, I don't know.
Density neighborhood.
Yes, how many people live in Clearwood? There's a lot. I don't.
Yeah, is it Little Rock? Oh my gosh, out by Rochester.
Clearwood, they have about 5,000 homes in there total.
So right there, that's what I'm trying to say. It would be interesting to see if there was another that we could kind of look at and see how do they deal with it? I don't know.
They are governed by the county, though. They should, I mean,
And I understand that. I feel for both sides because I completely understand what he's saying because, yeah, yeah, all right.
Well, it's an issue that people brought forward, so I figured I'd bring it forward and see where everybody lands. And then, back to your point about the chamber's job is not to bring forward stuff to council. Or as I know, because I'm a chamber member. It's more of community involvement, marketing, etc., not coming to the city council and present grievances. Because I've been here, as long as I've been here on council now a couple of years, they have not brought one issue. When I know there's many businesses that have issues with the city, that's not the chamber's job. You think it is, but it's not.
Well, the state chamber goes to talk to the state legislature. The national chamber goes and talks to Congress.
That's not the Yelm Chamber of Commerce, so.
Okay, I'm just saying that these other chambers, they do that. They have that opportunity. They can do that if they want, because how many businesses do you represent that are actually in Yelm? Almost majority of them, over 50% of them? More than 50%. So, the fact that somebody comes up and, as I said, stands before us and says, the chamber recognizes that there are 40 businesses looking for retail space in the city of Yelm. And that happens week after week or meeting after meeting after meeting. At some point, if we don't say something about it, we're just ignoring them.
The other thing I was gonna say is. But I think Brian brought this or somebody brought it up. I don't remember anymore. But they can come to the meetings. They can voice, they can write to us. They do write to us. We can hear from them. The community conversations, but a lot of people work. So there are opportunities, I guess.
That's option 4.
Yeah, I mean,
Or down there for it.
I don't think that's an option 4. That's an existing option that is not being taken advantage of as much as it could.
well, but a lot of people
No.
know, like, you talking about the
I work.
community conversation? Well, I do too.
Exactly, yet we're here today.
I'm talking about the community conversations.
Yeah.
That not everybody has the luxury of being able to go in the middle of the afternoon, is what I'm saying. And so maybe the other option, I guess I was thinking of, instead of have a. Hold a. I mean, I don't know.
For the business roundtables, I'll hold them in the.
Yes.
They'll
will?
be, yeah.
Okay,
absolutely,
great.
yeah. It won't require a lot of staff or anything.
Yeah.
It'd probably just be led by
That's for the
me
businesses. I'm thinking you're talking.
for everybody, yeah.
Citizens, yeah, I mean, we have businesses in town that are owned by people who live outside of city limits. And then you have the majority of people that spend money in Yelm, don't live in Yelm.
They also don't
in
work.
city
in them.
limits. Right.
There's so many categories you have to think of when you're making a decision like this that I feel like it needs scaled down. Are we gonna cater to those that live outside of city limits and own a business? Or are we gonna cater to those that live outside of city limits and have a grievance with a stoplight?
I don't think it's catering, I think it's listening.
I'm able to
Hearing.
listen to anybody without a committee.
How do they feel like they're heard? That's the biggest thing that I've heard, the biggest complaint is, I'm not being heard.
The other,
Basically, when you sift it out, like, they're not being heard.
the other question is being heard by who?
Yeah.
Heard by like the Yelm City Council or your own councilman, your own county council? Like, are they getting their needs? Like, I know there's cell service is a huge deal over there. I know a lot of people are, hollering at me to do something about it, but it's not city of Yelm. I can't tell them to, I can't tell, but.
When I lived outside of city limits, I wasn't concerned about the county, I was concerned about the city, that's where I go, that's where I spend my money, and that's where I have everything invested in. So that's why I cared about was the county, because the county doesn't have anything.
Not necessarily where you live, like you're going to sleep at, you don't care about that. You care about your day activities, like inside the city limits.
I think that people are they're just frustrated, but the thing is, let's be real, how many people vote anyway? So, yeah, they're in the city limits, people look at the voting numbers.
600.
Yeah, so I mean, so yeah, I think it's very valid,
There's a
but
lot of political
they're like, well, we can't vote, we can't do this. Well, would you actually vote? Because people that live here don't. I
If
mean,
it's about the accessibility of the city councilors or city representatives and their ability to give them attention, I think that there's other avenues that us as city councilors can be doing. Such as what I suggested, which was being at the farmer's market, having a booth completely for free, being accessible. We can be accessible and make sure that they're listened to.
I try to make sure that I listen to people who reside in and outside of unincorporated Yelm and Yelm, but not necessarily people from Roy or Edenville.
Maybe Lacy, but not.
Move to Yelm. Here and they come here, I'll listen.
What about those in Rainier?
I went to high school.
Not necessarily. They got their own government.
True.
Figure their stuff out.
anything else?
So where we at with it?
What's the difference in a lot of your bond voting compared to the city voting? Because like you talk about the YMCA possibly being a bond or levy, who's gonna vote on that then?
That'll be the city residents, the ones who basically vote for city council and mayor.
So it's not gonna affect anybody outside of city limits.
That's correct.
You can't say that for sure.
No, we don't know, how it's gonna be. I mean, it could be,
Yeah.
we do a sales tax, we could do, there's a lot of different options.
Yeah, if it's a sales tax,
There's
that's
different-
20,000 people
Yeah,
outside
there's
city
different-
limits
yeah.
that pay that.
Good question.
There's a lot of different ways we could potentially pay for it. If we do a property tax, it would be limited to inside the city limits, because that's where we have authority and jurisdiction on. But if we do a metropolitan park district, that could possibly go outside the city limits. So
But that vote, does everybody vote to say, yes, we want to do that, we want to create this? And then after that's done, then things are put together. It'll affect the people within the municipal park district. That
it
is
could be
set up.
outside the city limits too.
It could be outside the city limits.
But to your point, Councilmember Crossman, as to current or what the next action item is, what would you like to see us do?
First, I would like to hear from the mouse in the room. Councilmember Johnstone, she's been super quiet all night. I'm gonna put her on the spot and
She used to be.
see if she has an opinion of some sort.
I would say. When I purchased my home in Yelm, those are things we did look into before deciding on the area we purchased in, so I think due diligence on. People's parts, they can't buy a house and then claim they didn't know they weren't in the city, they didn't know they weren't gonna have access to X, Y, and Z. But that being said, I do think. Just from my short time being here, I've heard a lot of feedback on, the 98597 not having a voice, and I have seen. In the Facebook groups, lots of things being said about not having a voice, but I mean, when the rubber meets the road. No one's here saying anything. Is that because they're using council as their voice? And if so, then yes, that'd be an appropriate. Way of them using council members to bring actions to council, which. Like what Councilmember Brooks said is having access to us, and then those issues can be brought to us in an easier format rather than Facebook. But for the committees, anyone within 98597 can serve on those, correct?
Not all of the committees, not all of them, some of
The
them.
ones that they're not the appointed ones where you select.
It depends on.
Just the public safety committee or I'm sorry, not the public safety committee, it's the,
Salary?
no, it's salary, but then there's the one that, Rob runs.
Yeah, the police accountability.
Yeah, the police accountability one is local only. I think all the rest can be anywhere.
This might not be readily available. How many people that currently serve on those committees are not within Yelm city limits?
There's a decent amount.
Okay, so there is a need I would say possibly for some type of additional committee to extend beyond City of Yelm. Would the advisory committee option C is something that I think would be.
Are any of those seats vacant? On the committees right now?
Do we have anything?
There's one seat on the police advisory committee. We just had a person resign.
Okay.
We're almost all fully,
And they do,
staff.
so say like, you know, anybody can go out to Yelm website and they can find us. I think we're very accessible. They just click on us, email. I mean, I get emails all the time.
Yeah.
Messages. So, yeah, I think it's just people aren't, a lot of people just wanna complain too. I mean,
The peanut gallery is active.
no, I don't disagree with any of it. I'm just saying, we are accessible.
Has this been a long-standing issue where citizens,
Yes.
okay,
From what I've been.
I would like.
Every so often, so.
I would like to see the address statement added to the blue comment card so we can start tracking who from inside or outside the city limits is standing up with a voice.
They do say.
It's on there.
It is perfect.
And after the council meeting, just so you know, anyone who signs up for these are scanned and they're added to the agenda packet that's available on the website. So after the meeting, any handouts and the citizen cards are scanned and added to that packet. So that information is available on the website.
So
What do I do?
I think we're
That's
curious.
kind of like my question is like, are we gonna push forward on something, pursue something further, just let it lie?
I'd like to make a suggestion. Puyallup has this issue. There's Puyallup proper,
Mhm.
and then there's a large surrounding area that they go, I'm from Puyallup, but they don't live in the city. So maybe ask how Puyallup does it. Tacoma does the same thing, Tacoma proper, and then there's a large area surrounding area that they are Tacoma, but they're in Pierce County. We can look at those two. I'm not sure about Spanaway. I mean, Spanaway is a sprawl that I haven't quite figured that one out. But I was gonna say Puyallup, I know for sure because,
Some of Spanaway is Tacoma.
but I mean, it's like, we have areas to look at.
It's not important.
Not incorporated, no.
But
no,
the
but
address
it's
is
considered
that way,
Tacoma.
It says the address. It's very, like you're saying, but it's Pierce County that manages them.
Because, you know, you gotta check my sales tax. When I do those houses.
I mean, we could looking to see how they handle it.
So
Did you weigh in?
I would choose at this moment in time, number D, do nothing. Because I agree that anybody that comes to our audience can say what they want. We listen, we address issues. I don't see any problem with that. And just keep on coming and keep going to attending our committees that you're able to do. I don't really see a differentiation that's needed. So that's my vote.
Yeah, fill those seats.
Yeah. And quit running away when we start the meeting. Oh.
And I'll put out, we already took notes about creating that, business advisory committee or business advisory, not advisory, but roundtable, business roundtable. We'll do it quarterly though, invite council members, hopefully there's, obviously there's some business owners here on the council as well. If they want to attend, it'd be great to have their perspective on that as well.
Anything else?
Anybody there? Bother from you.
So do you have more you want to talk about?
I'm,
Asking that.
oh, yeah, it's good.
No,
We keep
I mean,
doing
I don't-
other things.
I don't know what you,
You already.
I don't know what you want to do.
Used up more time. than-
I was,
No,
what should we pursue? You know, what is the feel of the council?
I have to agree with Terry. I mean, the citizen at large kind of intrigued me just when you were talking about it, but honestly, I feel like it's do nothing because
I mean, I just put that as a heading, doesn't mean do nothing. Sorry, it's my
Yeah,
notes.
yeah.
Status quo.
Yeah.
It says, there you go, that's a better
status
term.
quo,
I
because-
feel like this is a reaction to recent events that we've had in the community, and that's what this is.
But this was before that.
That's why I asked if it
This
was
has been
long-standing.
brewing
It has
for
been long
longer.
standing, but it's been the most.
That's why I
active
waited.
In the last 3-4 months, and that's what this is. That's why I very clearly said, as long as people are from Yelm, not Roy or Eatonville. Because then I would listen to their
Hey,
voice.
I went to Yelm High School. I was in Roy.
I appreciate you, but yeah, it's not that I don't want to do nothing. I just think that this is a
That's good.
reaction coming from the recent events.
Well, it's not. This was before that, and I wanted to wait a little bit longer, so, because the idea was bringing it forward last month.
Yeah.
I was like, nah,
Too soon.
let's wait, let's wait a little bit longer.
And maybe just as conversations come up, or if you see it on Facebook, remind people that, they can reach out to us at.
Hey, I did my due diligence. I brought it
You
forward.
did, all right.
No, good job, good job. I'm surprised you took so
Do you have
long.
any other initiatives?
Well, lots of initiative, but I'm good for tonight. It's already,
Okay.
a while.
Harry?
Yes. I did have EIC written on my paper, just so you guys know, it really is here. But other than that, I have a question. Cody, Brad is gone now, and I'm sorry, I forgot to ask him. My very important technical question is exactly what type of fencing is going around the dog park?
Black vinyl.
Excellent, good answer.
Galvanized chain link. Terry.
Our old city hall, when are they going to be fixing their fencing?
They are aware and they're working on it. So they moved the fence back. You may have noticed they shifted it a little bit.
Really?
They've shifted a little bit and then they're supposed to be putting some stuff over it. So we're giving them a little slack to do. The Boys and Girls Club and school just started, but we are staying on them and we will kick them out the second.
Oh, these are.
We are giving them slack and trying to help them get to, we know they're busy right now because it started.
I mean, it's gonna be like black fence, it's not like weird big words.
No, it'll be like black vinyl.
With the rules we made. Okay, thank you. That is all I have, Holly.
Yes, thank you. I would like to bring up, I don't have a presentation, but I'd like to bring up a youth council. It's something that was talked about before I sat in this chair, and I would like to see that again. The youth council?
Keep it short.
Yeah.
I was not MIA. I was out on vacation, finally got one after 2 years and enjoyed some sightseeing. Went to small communities. I shared with Miss Roy, as well as, and will happily share with other council members. Sonoma does a great thing during the summer. They have a event that's at their plaza. Same thing we can do at our park. Once we get our stage, we get the one-way couplets put together. It's food trucks, DJ, music, whatever, and it's just a big party for, I think it was like 4 or 5 hours. Wonderful. It was a great experience. So I thought that was really a good thing, and seeing it done, really like the way that community was brought, because you saw families that were getting together, businesses were getting together, things like that.
Was it a 45-hour party?
No, it was from 4 to
I see.
4 or 5 hours.
I just heard that, like,
California's Austin. Yeah.
heck of a party.
Also, I've started to talk to Director Colt about it. I want to try to get some more research. Deals with looking at the current events of the past few years in reference to fires in communities. The one in Hawaii, the one in California, they're similar to what Yelm is set up as. We have 3 roads that get us in and out. Do we have a way that if, God forbid, the conditions were just right, like with Hawaii and just like the one in California, where a fire starts, the winds pick up and all of a sudden sweep, could Yelm fall into that situation? So it's kind of the fire prevention. I saw one of the communities that I visited had a plaque that said they were with a national fire, they were recognized for their fire suppression system of forest. Then there was the grasslands, and then working their way so that if the forest caught on fire, it actually slowed down before it hit the city. So talking with Director Colt, want to find out if we can kind of start looking at doing something like that in the future. And then the last thing is, bringing, again, I want to just reiterate the whole thing of, I'd like to see some way that next year we can get, more gardening, landscaping, something that's really challenging for Yelm too. I know that water is a big issue, and so find some way to work with master gardeners or somebody to say, okay, here's some other options, and let's green up our community. I understand grass is not dead, it's just sleeping, it's hibernating during the heat. But I think it'd be great if we can find some ways to say, hey, you can have more than just grass in your front yard. There's different ways of landscaping, and maybe, again, working with Director Colt with city owned property, not necessarily parks, but other areas that, here's some examples. Doesn't need to be maintained, doesn't take a lot of water, and it still looks good. That's all I have. Thank you.
It's called drought resistant.
Right, but it's also using indigenous plants and things like that.
Absolutely.
Maybe get gardening with Cisco to come down, do a demonstration.
No, whatever we can do, but I think it'd be something really nice to do for the community.
I do have one thing, and I don't have a lot of, I'll just make it really brief. It would be for next year, but I've had two, and not my own, but I've had two different car clubs actually reach out to me in the past couple of weeks that are local here in Yelm, that are wondering about how do we get something like Eatonville, Enumclaw, Centralia. They have these cruise nights, or first thing they said, we just want you to shut down Main Street. I said, those are state. And I had this discussion twice over the last week. I said, that is never going to happen. But anyway, most of these are the ones that have the really old restored cars, and they really would like to have a place maybe once a month where even if you could shut down a portion of a street, and because obviously I'm going to reach out to some of the other smaller cities because I know what they do. And a lot of them have these it's like if you were young and you cruised, right? And then people can come out and see the cars and all of that. So I'm going to try to I told him I would work on it.
What's this cruising that you speak of?
Come on. What?
Can they confirm nor deny? I know what you're talking about.
No, okay, these are not street takeovers, these are not street takeovers.
Museum darn.
We got two beautiful one-way streets coming in.
I know, but anyway, it's just something that I want to put on the radar because it's, yeah.
We'll chat with our rec team here and see if we can do some event at the very least. Yeah, we'll work with you on it.
All right. Oh,
Oh, you.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, no, I just wanna, not really an initiative, but I just wanna reiterate, we should never feel bad about having a discussion that takes an enormous amount of time. It's okay to have these discussions. We have these discussions for a reason, for purpose. I do like these ideas. I just sad that it's not possible. And everybody that has opinions that are, it's good, as you said some things and I'm like, oh, okay. And it makes sense. It's good to have contrary opinions and to listen to each other. So I really do appreciate that. And I really do, I listen a lot. I listen a lot and choose when to speak. And I do appreciate the discussion and the time that we take to have them, because if we were just trying to get out of here and not have a discussion, then I would be upset with all of you and very pissed off. But that is a good thing that we have as we discuss things and work through them. So thank you for that.
I also wrote down Youth Advisory Council. So I saw City of Lacey has an awesome one. So I was curious if y'all ever had one.
No, it's kind of been discussed. If it's never really been anything we've done. Yeah, I'll chat with our management team, see what we can do. What it would look like, what it would take, and we'll get back to you next study session or maybe next meeting, see what it takes. But yeah.
SRO's involved.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got a question. Was it, so what does it look like? What do you guys envision that being?
There's two different routes you could go based on the cities that surround ours and what they do. One has a committee and they have one representative from that committee be with us as a non-voting body. And then the other one is we would have a couple children that would be up with us each time. also non-voting, but they're there to say their opinion because children are future.
Children.
We could choose anything from middle school to high school.
Kindergarten or so.
That's what you.
Well, it'd be
sound like.
cute, but basically emulate what the school district is doing. And the school district has 2 juniors, 2 seniors.
Okay.
And
Now,
cycle.
we can decide how it looks like and all that. But yeah.
They have to be city
We'll
residents.
put a couple of options together and we'll get back.
Yay.
All right, I'm calling it adjourned unless, do you have anything else? Sorry.
I don't think
Okay. we're
Yes,
done.
no, wait.
What? No, no, we're not doing that. I'm not playing that game.
Wow. Okay.